Hello everyone, a warm welcome to all of you on EduTap. And my dear friends, I believe that all of you have checked your scorecard, not the result of the NABARD Grade A exam, phase 1 exam. And my dear friends, for the phase 2 exam, it is really high time that all of you must pull up your socks and make sure that you have revised everything from the exam point of view. And to ensure that revision of all of you, in this particular part, we at EduTap have brought up the NABARD Grade A marathon session, and in this session, my dear friends, we will be making sure that yes, we have covered all the important ESI reports for the month of October 2023. So my dear friends, in this session, we will be covering all the most important MCQs of October 2023 reports, and we will be making sure that yes, you have revised everything from the exam point of view, as October is one of the most important month for the NABARD Grade A phase 2 exam. So hello Nilesh and all the people who have joined us in our today's session. So my dear friends, before moving on to the session, first of all of you are requested to give me a thumbs up in the chat box if I am audible and visible to all of you so that we can begin this particular session. I'm waiting for your responses. Okay, so thank you everyone for providing your responses. And my dear friends, let's move on to the session. So first of all, the question is that why the reports are important. The reason is these numbers. In the NABARD Grade A exam, I will not be talking about the phase 1 because it is already done. In the phase 2, you can see the 10 marks of objective questions were being asked in the previous year of the exam, and in the phase 2 of the 2021, 9 marks of questions were being asked in the exam, and that is the reason that why the reports and indices are very important from the exam point of view. So my dear friends, let us see some previous year questions as well before directly moving on to the questions of the reports of October 2023. You can see here the questions related to the Global Food Security Index 2021. Then we have question on the Global Gender Gap Index. We have questions about the National Education Policy and the All India Survey on Higher Education 2019-2020 report, and that shows that how much the reports are really very important from the exam point of view. Okay, let me tell you my dear friends that today we are going to cover the October 23 report. It doesn't mean that you are not required to cover the July, August and September reports. We have already covered the July, August and September reports for the phase 1 part, and you are really required to go through those sessions as well, in which we have covered all the reports in a very detailed manner so that you can prepare yourself for the NABARD Grade A phase 2 exam. Okay, so my dear friends, another important thing for all of you that you have to tell me and make sure that on a blank paper, please make sure you are marking your answers, and also try to identify that how many questions you have marked right in the today's session. Today's session we will be covering the 25 MCQs, and at the end of the session you have to tell me that what exactly your score is out of 25 in this particular part. So I believe that all of you are really very excited for the today's session, and another important thing is the participation of yours is mandatory in the today's session. So please make sure that you are participating in this session by telling me the right answers that you think of that particular question as per the report. So here is the very first question of the report, and you will be seeing in the exam as well, you will be seeing such kind of instructions are being mentioned to all of you. So what should be the approach of solving such kind of questions? First of all, you can see in the instruction part it is being written a new FAO flagship report entitled The Impact of Disasters on Agriculture and Food Security has been mentioned. That means the title of the report is already much clear to all of you. The releasing word is clear to all of you. So I don't think that it is really required for you कि आप पूरा का पूरा paragraph read out kare. Instead you should better invest your time in solving the MCQs, and the very first question on this report is here on the screen. So as per this report, you have to identify the correct statement regarding this particular report. So यहाँ पर आपके सामने 3 statements mention की गई हैं, and you have to go through them. You have to tell me in the chat box that which of the following statements are correct with respect to this particular report, which is released by Food and Agriculture Organization. Coming to the very first statement, it states that the natural disasters have caused $3.8 trillion loss in crops and livestock production over the past 30 years. Lost averaged 123 billion annually. जो थीम है रिपोर्ट की, इट इज अवॉइडिंग एंड रिड्यूसिंग लॉसेस थ्रू इन्वेस्टमेंट इन द सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स. सो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, वी ऑल नो दैट एग्रीकल्चर एंड रूरल डेवलपमेंट इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट द नाबार्ड ग्रेड एग्जाम. तो उसके लिए सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज हमें क्या करनी है, दैट इज समथिंग विच इज रिलेटेड टू द फूड, और यही है फूड एंड एग्रीकल्चर organization की report, which is really very important, which tells us about the impact of disasters on the agriculture and food ecosystem. So आपके सामने तीन statements हैं. You have to identify which of the following statements are correct with respect to this particular report. And let me tell you that here the right answer is option D, that is both 1 and 2. That means statement 1 and 2 are absolutely right. So my dear friends, all of you are requested to please tell me your answers, that which of the following was your answer as per this particular part. Even if you do not have covered this report, do not worry about it. Still, just answer the question in the chat box so that yes, we can make this particular session more productive for all the people. Okay, so absolutely right here, option D is the right answer. The incorrect part is basically about the theme of this report, that is avoiding and reducing losses through investment in the sustainable development goals. So if I can see, the theme of the report is avoiding and reducing losses through investment in resilience, and that was the incorrect part in the statement which is being mentioned in the question, and that is why to the question number 1 the right answer was option D. Here we can see already the natural disasters, उसकी वजह से $3.8 billion का $1 trillion का loss हुआ है, and Asia has experienced the largest share of the total economic losses. Let me tell you the information that I am discussing here in this slide. The question in the upcoming slides will be based on that only. So you have to be very sure that yes, you are understanding and listening to me very carefully. Okay, अगर हम बात करते हैं overall losses की, तो it was basically 5% of the global agricultural GDP. Cereal losses की बात करते हैं, it averaged 69 million tons annually over the past 3 decades. So my dear friends, these are the most important points that we have to cover from here. So let's move on to the next important question of the today's session. In this question, you have to identify incorrect statement with regard to this particular report. So यहाँ पर once again 3 statements are being mentioned. You have to identify the incorrect statement. So please go through the statements and tell me the right answer. पहली statement है, जो most vulnerable actors हैं due to disasters, these are smallholder rain-fed farmers. Africa ने experience किया है largest share of the total economic losses. Disaster events have quadrupled from 100 per year in the 1970s to around 400 events per year in the past 2 decades worldwide. Let me tell you my dear friends, आज के सेशन के अंदर हम सभी रिपोर्ट्स को काफी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिवली कवर करेंगे सो दैट आपकी NABARD ग्रेड ए एग्जाम के लिए आज के सेशन के बाद आपको अक्टूबर 23 रिपोर्ट्स के बारे में टेंशन लेने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. ठीक है, सो आई कैन सी हियर टू द क्वेश्चन नंबर 2, Ravi Shankar and Nilesh are answering the question that it is option B, that is only statement 2 is absolutely the incorrect one, and they are absolutely right. The right answer is option B, that is only statement 2. As I told you in the slide that it was not Africa, it was Asia which experienced the largest share of the total economic losses, and that is the reason that statement 2 is absolutely incorrect, and the right answer is option B. ठीक है, तो आप देख सकते हैं कि अगर एशिया के लॉसेस की अगर हम बात करें, वर 4% of the agricultural added value while Africa's were nearly 8%. एंड अगर हम बात करते हैं डिजास्टर इवेंट्स की, तो वो 4x हुए हैं फ्रॉम 100 पर ईयर इन 1970 टू 400 events per year in the past 2 decades worldwide. And the most vulnerable actors were smallholder rain-fed farmers. Absolutely, this is the right part. So Nilesh has given some additional information. Absolutely right, Nilesh. So well done to all of you who have given me the right answers. Let's move on to the next question, guys. The next question here is basically on the recommendations which are being given by this particular report, and you have to go through these recommendations and tell me what is the right answer. Let me tell you, my dear friends, that these recommendations will not have that much significance for the objective paper, but it have a very good significance when we talk about the subjective paper, the descriptive one. You can use these recommendation points if it is being asked about that how exactly we can tackle the disasters and these natural calamities in creating losses in the agriculture ecosystem. In that particular part, we can just definitely mention such kind of recommendations, and you can also use them in another important part in your English exam as well. So यहाँ पर आपके सामने 3 statements given हैं, and let me tell you that all of them are correct as per the recommendations which are being provided by this report, which states, first of all, we have to enhance disaster impact data for all the agricultural subsectors. It includes crops, livestock, fisheries, aquaculture and forestry. मल्टी सेक्टर और मल्टी हजार डिजास्टर रिस्क को इंटीग्रेट करने की बात की गई, सो दैट हम रिस्क रिडक्शन कर सके इनटू पॉलिसीज एंड प्रोग्राम्स एट ऑल द लेवल्स, and we can increase the investments in agriculture resilience. See, हमें क्या करना है? We have to make our agriculture resilient, and that is why we will be making it that stronger that it can sustain such kind of disaster impacts. And उसके लिए what we are required to do? We are required to increase the investments to reduce the disaster risk, and so that we can improve the livelihoods as well. Why this livelihood point is very important, I will be discussing that in a detailed manner in the upcoming slides. Do not worry about it. So to the question number 3, guys, the right answer is option E. Absolutely. Let's move on to the next question. The next question is on the food price index. It is a measure of the monthly change in the international prices of a basket of food commodities. So my dear friends, क्या होगा अगर कोई disaster आता है तो food prices पे क्या इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है? फूड प्राइसेस इंक्रीज करते हैं, तो उसको मेजर करना होगा, उसको कंट्रोल करना होगा. उसके लिए वी हैव अ फूड प्राइस इंडेक्स. In the previous report, we have covered the impact of disaster. We have seen that there was so much of losses, and as a part of that particular losses, there is an increase in the commodity prices, the food commodity prices across the world. Okay, so now the question is, which of the following organization has recently released the food price index? The question is a very simple one, but yes, it can be asked in the exam. So food price index को basically कौन launch करेगा? So my dear friends, the organization which is basically going to work and gives its contribution towards doing such kind of thing for the food across the world, to so that we can just maintain and we can prevent the food insecurity to take place in the world. The name of that organization is Food and Agriculture Organization. Option B is the right answer. Absolutely right. So Nilesh and Ravi have given the right answer. That is option B. That is Food and Agriculture Organization. अगर हम बात करते हैं इस रिपोर्ट की, क्या करती है? It tracks the most globally traded food commodities. ठीक है जी. So यहाँ पर बात आती है FAO की. So FAO is a very very important organization जिसके बारे में हमें थोड़ा डिटेल में डिस्कस करना चाहिए. So my dear friends, when I talk about the Food and Agriculture Organization, it is the agency of the United Nations which leads international efforts to defeat hunger. So as I talk about the sustainable development goals, we are having the 17 sustainable development goals, and in that particular part we have a SDG goal number 2. Can anybody tell me what is that particular goal? The goal is zero hunger, and that is why this particular part is really very important to be covered from the exam point of view. When I talk about the FAO, guys, so FAO has basically 195 members, in which there are 194 countries, and European Union is another one member of this particular part. Absolutely right. When I talk about the FAO, it was established in which year? Can anybody tell me in which year it was being established? The Food and Agriculture Organization was established in which year? It was established in 1945. Absolutely, this is the right part to this particular question. Apart from that, my dear friend, let me tell you that as per the recent exam trend, for example, when I talk about the RBI Grade B Officer Phase 2 exam, such kind of the questions on such kind of information of the World Trade Organization was being asked in the exam. That is why you have to be very sure that yes, you are updated as per the recent exam trends, और उसके अकॉर्डिंग ही हम क्वेश्चंस को सॉल्व करें. तो उसी के अकॉर्डिंग अगर हम बात करते हैं, एक और क्वेश्चन जो मेरे माइंड में आता है, दैट इज the name of the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization, because the head of WTO was also being asked in the RBI Grade B Officer Phase 2 exam. So such kind of questions we can also expect in the NABARD Grade A exam. So यहाँ पर अगर हम बात करते हैं, can anybody tell me who is the Director General of the FAO? The Director General of FAO is basically Q Dongyu. Okay, Q Dongyu is the right answer. He is a Chinese diplomat. Absolutely right, it is the right part. Apart from that, my dear friends, let me tell you that World Food Day is also being celebrated across the world, and the date on which we celebrate this day is 16th October. 16th October को हम celebrate करते हैं World Food Day. So these are the very very important information that we must cover about the Food and Agriculture Organization. So with this part we have covered 2 important reports, and we have also covered important details about the organization, that is Food and Agriculture Organization. Let's solve another important question regarding this particular part, because FAO का जो food price index है, it was basically launched and September 2023 का data उन्होंने release किया था. So the question is basically that as per this particular part, it almost unchanged from its value in the August, as decline in the price indices of vegetable oil, dairy and meat had offset increases in the sugar and cereal price indices. So you have to tell me basically what exactly was the score of the food price index for the month of September 23. So please quickly tell me, my dear friends, what is the right answer? What was the score? So here when I talk about the score, it was basically 21.5 points. Okay? So earlier in the month of August, it was 121.4. It increased to 121.5 points. And that is what the right answer is. So Ravi Shankar is saying that he will be skipping such kind of question. That is a very good important thing, my dear friends. Why so? Because in the exam, you are not required to attract the negative marks. And if you are not unsure about any kind of data, please make sure that you are not answering such kind of question. And yes, if you can just use the elimination method, then only you are required to do that. But apart from that, please do not do just wild guesses in the exam, because it can really cost you your selection. So my dear friends, as we have covered so many things about, we have covered the food price index, we have covered another important thing, like we have covered the impact of disasters on the agriculture ecosystem. Let me tell you that in the month of June 23, अगर हम बात करते हैं कभी भी डिजास्टर आता है तो उससे क्या होता है, फूड इनसिक्योरिटी होती है, फूड प्राइसेस इंक्रीज होते हैं, है ना. तो इन जून 23 अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रिपोर्ट वाज बीइंग रिलीज्ड. द नेम ऑफ द रिपोर्ट वाज हंगर हॉटस्पॉट. A hunger hotspot report was released, जिसका पूरा टाइटल था Hunger Hotspots Early Warning on Acute Food Insecurity. And this particular report was basically launched by the Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Food Program. So these two organizations have together released this particular report, and this report stated that the agriculture food insecurity across the world has deteriorated further in the 18 hunger hotspots. जो total 18 hunger hotspots हैं, जिसके अंदर 22 countries हैं, वो वहां पर जो situation है और ज्यादा deteriorate होने वाली है. Apart from that, when I talk about some major hotspots in the world, can anybody tell me the name of those countries? These include Pakistan, Afghanistan and Myanmar. So these are the three countries which were the part of these major hotspot countries which are there across the world. I hope that this point is very much clear to all of you. We have covered a very, very important report. And now, my dear friends, another important report that all of you are really required to cover from the exam point of view. And that report is a very important report. And that report was released in May 23. But see, I am making you revise all such kind of reports because they are really very important from the exam point of view. They have been released by the FAO, and that is why they are really very important. The report that I am going to discuss is the status of women in agri-food system, and this report was also being released by the FAO. Okay, ji? And let me tell you, my dear friend, that this agri-food system is one of the major employer of the women's across the world. Why I am saying so? Because 36% of the working women, 38% of the working men, they work in एग्री फूड सिस्टम एज ऑफ 2019 से अगर हम बात करते हैं, डेटा लेते हैं, तो जो टोटल हमारे वर्किंग मेन है और वर्किंग वुमेन है, उसमें 36% ऑफ देम आर एसोसिएटेड with the agri-food system. Okay, and together when I talk about, so 4 billion people are basically associated, and their livelihood relies on the agri-food systems only. अगर हम बात करते हैं as per this report, conflict and insecurity, they were the key drivers of the food crisis and food insecurity across the world. And let me tell you, my dear friends, we have seen a lot many important things. अभी हमने global gender gap का previous year question देखा, that a question was being asked. Let me tell you that the status of women in agri-food system also talks about the global gender gap, and it states if we can just close this gender gap which exists in the farm productivity, and if we close the wage gap, my dear friends, if we reduce the wage gap in the agri-food system, then it is going to increase the global GDP by 1%, and that is equivalent to $1 trillion. So my dear friend, that is why a very, very important part, and these are the most important findings that we have to cover from this particular report. So here with this part, we have covered 2 more important reports. Maybe they were from the previous month, but still they have a relevance from the exam point of view for the NABARD Grade A Phase 2 exam. So my dear friends, please give me a thumbs up if you have got these 2 particular reports, and we can move on to the next question of the session. Please give me a thumbs up. If you have got the important understanding about these two reports which have been released in the month of May and June as well, that is the hunger hotspot report and the status of women in the agri-food systems. So thank you guys for your responses here in the chat box, and let us move on to the another important report. And here is the next important report, guys. So I have already told you कि अगर food, if there is a disaster, तो उससे क्या होगा, food prices increase होंगे, agriculture loss होगा, agriculture loss होने से क्या होगा, तो काफी सारी चीजें होंगी, food price index increase होगा. And my dear friends, what the next thing which is going to happen is it will lead to hunger. And the next important report is also in the similar lines, and I believe that you can very easily identify the name of that particular report as well. So यहाँ पर आपके सामने फिर से एक particular instruction दी गई है. The report highlights as the year 2030 looms and just 7 years remain to achieve the sustainable development goals. I told you SDG number 2 is the one which basically deals with the zero hunger. So nearly 750 million people are unable to exercise their right to adequate food. Hunger is not new and neither are its drivers. So it is very much clear from this particular instruction that this particular report is related to hunger only. Okay? So let's move on to the very first question, guys. Here you can see, here you are required to basically identify the correct statement regarding this particular report which has been discussed. Let me tell you that the report, it is basically targeting is the global hunger index which have been recently launched. So here 3 statements are being given on this same report, and you have to identify the correct statement regarding this particular part. The very first statement is basically about the releasing body of this global hunger index, and it is released by the German-based Concern Worldwide and Irish-based Welt Hunger Life organization. The theme of this year's index is the power of youth in shaping the food system. The third statement states that the score is calculated on a 100-point scale, and 0 signifies the worst score and 100 signifies the best score. So you have to identify that which of the following statements are correct with respect to part. Let me see who will tell me the right answer. So here some of the people are saying that option to the question number 6, the right answer is option D. And can we lock this particular option? So all the people are going with the option D. Absolutely not, my dear friends. The option D is not the right answer. Right answer is option B. That is only statement number 2 is correct part. Okay? So here you can see that it is released by the German-based Concern Worldwide and Irish-based Welt Hunger Life. So here the theme of this year's index is the power of youth in shaping and food system. The third statement states the score is calculated on a 100-point scale. 0 signifies the worst score and the 100 signifies the best score. Okay, so let us see that what exactly is the right part here. So my dear friends, सबसे पहले हम देख लेते हैं that it is being released by Concern Worldwide and Welt Hunger Life. That is the most important thing that we have to cover. It was first time published in 2006, and the theme of the report is the power of youth in shaping food system. अगर हम बात करते हैं scores की, तो ये बिल्कुल एक 100-point scale पर इसको measure करते हैं. But here 0 signifies the best score and 100 signifies the worst score as a part of this particular index. And when we talk about this particular index, it basically assesses the countries across the 4 parameters. What are these 4 parameters? These are undernourishment, child mortality, child stunting, and the child wasting. So these are the 4 indicators. Let me tell you, the upcoming questions will also be based on such kind of lines only. Okay? So here we have covered the 2 dimensions of the report, that is the releasing body, and we have covered about part as well, that what are the different indicators it uses to assess the countries. Let's move on to the next question, question number 7. And here once again you can see that the question are being asked on the similar lines only. Once again you have to go through the statements and identify the statement which is incorrect. Okay? So here Welt Hunger Life is a private organization in the USA which was established in 1962 is the first statement. Let me tell you, my dear friend, this is just a reframed question of the previous question, but still such kind of questions can be asked in the exam. Second statement states it calculates the global hunger index based on the 5 indicators, and China is among the top 5 ranked countries. This is the third statement. So please quickly tell me and identify the incorrect statement with respect to the global hunger index which has been mentioned here. So here the 3 statements we have already discussed. The right answer is option D, that is both statement 1 and 2 are the incorrect ones. So statement 1, it states that Welt Hunger Life is a private organization in the USA, but no, it is a Irish based organization. Statement 2 कहता है कि ये 5 indicators के across calculate करता है global hunger index को, but it is 4 indicators, and that is why it is the incorrect part. And China is among the top 5 ranked countries. That is absolutely right. So that is the right part. Here I can see Ravi, Rahul and Nilesh have given me the right answer. Absolutely right, my dear friends. Well done. So here we can see, if I talk about the global score, so it was in the moderate category and the score was 18.3. If we talk about the global average score, the top 5 countries were Belarus, Bosnia, China and Croatia. Bottom 5 countries are Lesotho, Democratic Republic of Congo, Yemen, Madagascar and Central African Republic. तो यहाँ पर हम देख सकते हैं कि top 5 countries, bottom 5 countries कौन कौन सी थी. 9 countries आपके alarming situation में है, 34 are under the serious category, 37 are moderate and 50 are in the low categories. ठीक है. And when I talk about the share of undernourished people, it has increased from 7.5% to 9.2% in 2022. And world's most affected regions are the South Asia and Africa south of the Sahara. So these are the important findings from this particular report that we have to cover from the exam point of view. We have covered the most important one, that is releasing body. We have covered the about the section of this report. Now we have covered the global findings of the report. And now, my dear friends, let's move on to the another important part, that is the finding which is related to India. So the question is, as India has been ranked 111th out of 125 countries, my dear friends, one of the most important point you have to remember from the exam point of view. So it indicates a serious level of hunger, and it states that India has one of the highest child wasting rates. See, the question has been asked on the highest child wasting rate which is there in India across the world, and you have to identify that what exactly that particular rate is. What is that particular rate? That is 18.7, 19.7, 20.7, 21.7 or 22.7. What is it? It is basically 18.7%. Option A is the right answer to this particular question. So India की अगर हम बात करते हैं रैंक की, इंडिया की रैंक थी 111 आउट ऑफ 125 और पिछले साल के कंपैरिजन में देखा जाए तो यहां पर हम देख सकते हैं कि इंडिया की जो रैंक है वो 4 प्लेसेस स्लिप हुई है. इंडिया स्कोर वाज 28.7. ठीक है. अंडर नरिशमेंट की बात करते हैं, इट वाज 16.6% इन इंडिया. अंडर 5 मोर्टेलिटी वाज 3.1%. अनेमिया इन वुमेन इट वाज 58.1%. चाइल्ड वेस्टिंग रेट इज 18.7%, which is highest in the world, a very important point as per the global hunger index. And the child stunting rate was 35.5%. that is the right answer. ठीक है जी. So my dear friends, let me tell you another important point, that another report which gives us such kind of data, and let me discuss that report as well, which is once again released by the FAO, UNICEF, World Food Program and the World Health Organization. And the name of the report is State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World in 2023. So this report was being released recently, and this report states, if I talk about across the world, the global hunger has impacted 9.2% of the global population. And my dear friends, when I talk about the previous data, it was just 7.9% in 2019 and it has increased to 9.2% in 2022. जब हम बात करते हैं 2022 के अंदर तो 735 million people are going to face hunger. Basically 735 million people have faced hunger in 2022. That is the another important data that we have to cover from this particular report. Apart from that, there are other important points. If I talk about at the global level, so what exactly was the stunting, wasting and the overweight percentage? Let me tell you, in year 2022, total 148.1 million, that is under 5 children, are stunted across the world. That is 22.3%. When I talk about the wasted children, so 45 million children, that is 6.8% are wasted. And when I talk about the overweight, then 37 million, that means 5.6% are overweight. And my dear friend, these are the most important details that we have to cover from the exam point of view. So we have basically discussed the India specific findings. We have covered another important report which is being once again released by the FAO, and we have covered important findings of that report as well. I believe that these particular reports are very much clear to all of you. And now, my dear friends, let's move on to the another important question from the same report, which is the global hunger index. The question is, you are required to identify the correct statement with respect to the global hunger index. 3 statements are being given. The overall score of India is 27.8. वर्ल्ड हंगर डे ऑब्जर्व होता है 28 मई को. SDG 3 एम करता है जीरो हंगर बाय 2023. So my dear friends, can you identify the right part? See, I have already given you the important details about this particular question, that which of the following statements are correct. हमने already cover किया था that India's score is 28.7 and not 27.8. That is why statement 1 is absolutely incorrect. The statement 2 states the World Hunger Day is observed on 28th May. Absolutely right. Sustainable Development Goal number 3 aims to achieve zero hunger. My dear friend, there is a very important major incorrect part here, that is Sustainable Development Goal number 2 is the one which aims to achieve zero hunger, and that too by we are targeting to achieve by 2030, and that's why all these statements are basically the statement number 2 is the one which is basically the correct part. So right answer is option B. So I can see here Rahul, Nilesh and Ravi have given me the right answer, that is statement B, only 2 is the right answer. हम यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं additional information guys, that World Hunger Life is basically a German organization established in 1962 as a German section of Freedom from Hunger campaign. अगर हम बात करते हैं concern worldwide की, तो it is basically Ireland's largest aid and humanitarian agency. When I talk about the World Hunger Day, it is observed on 28th May. The theme was celebrating sustainable solutions to hunger and poverty, and the most important point, sustainable development goals. So goal number 2 is the one which aims to achieve zero hunger, and these are the important information and important details that we have to cover from the exam point of view. Let's move on to the next question. So my dear friends, we have already seen that अगर food के ऊपर impact पड़ेगा तो food का direct impact पड़ता है किस पर, which is one of the most important pillar of the world economy, that is human capital. अगर human capital impact होगी तो world economy भी impact होगी. So now let's discuss the world economy now. The different reports have been released, different economic outlooks have been released, and they are very important to be covered from the exam point of view. So here you can see that the report has highlighted that the global economy is proving to be more resilient than expected in the first half of 23, but the growth outlook remains weak, with monetary policy becoming increasingly visible and weaker than expected recovery in China. Global growth in 24 is projected to be lower than in 2023. So here, my dear friends, a particular data from a report is being mentioned. You are required to identify the name of the report. You are required to identify what is the name of that organization which has come up with this report. So the very first question is here on the similar line. The very first question is you have to identify the name of the report which has released, name of the body which has released this particular report. Here 5 options are OECD, IMF, World Bank, ADB and the World Economic Forum. So please try to identify the name of that particular organization which has come up with this report. So here I can see the people are saying that it is World Economic Outlook which has been launched by IMF, but my dear friends, it is not the World Economic Outlook. It is basically the OECD which has come up with this particular report, and that is the right answer to this particular question. The right answer is option A, and the name of the report that we are trying to cover here is OECD Economic Outlook Interim Report September 2023. The theme of the report was confronting inflation and low growth. Let me tell you once again that the information which is being mentioned here on this slide, it is very important. Please make sure that you note down these information because there can be a question in the upcoming part of this particular part. ठीक है? So my dear friend, जैसे कि हमने FAO को cover किया था, now I think it is a very good time that we should also cover OECD as well, because the details about these organizations can also be asked in the exam. So पहला question मेरा आप सभी से है, can you guys tell me the year in which this OECD was being established? Let me tell you that OECD is presently having 38 member countries. ठीक है? And this OECD was formerly OEEC, and this is basically Organization for European Economic Cooperation. Organization for European Economic Cooperation, and this was basically launched to reconstruct Europe after World War II. ठीक है जी? और एक convention हुआ था, there was a convention. I am just mentioning that convention here. This particular convention, that is Chateau de la Meute, this was basically conducted in Paris on 14th December 1960, and it came into force on 30th September 1961, the year in which the OECD was being established. So my dear friends, absolutely right here. Most of the people has given me the right answer, that is 1961. Absolutely right. So let me tell you that why exactly I have discussed this information. The reason is that the question on the similar lines was being asked in the RBI Grade B Officer Phase 2 exam, and we must learn from the findings of such kind of recent exam trend, and we have to make sure that yes, we are ready with such kind of questions as well in the exam. Okay, so we have covered the convention, we have covered each and everything. Now a question arises into my mind. Can you guys tell me who is the Secretary General of the OECD? Who is the Secretary General of OECD? The name of the person is Matthias Cormann. Matthias Cormann is the name of the person who is presently serving as the Secretary General of OECD. Absolutely right, my dear friend. This is the right part. So this was all the important information that you are required to cover about the OECD. Let's move on to the question itself. And the first question here from the report is, the world economy is expected to grow by 3% in 23. But what exactly will be the growth rate of world economy in 2024? That is what the question is, and it is very direct question, guys. I will not be giving much more time to such kind of questions. It is 2.7%. right answer to this question is 2.7%. ठीक है जी, हम यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं ग्लोबल जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट अगर देखें 2022 के अंदर इट वाज 3.3, देन इट रिड्यूस्ड, इट स्लोड बाय 0.3%. दैट इज 2023 के अंदर इट वाज 3.0%, एंड इन 24 इट इज वंस अगेन गोइंग टू स्लो डाउन टू 2.7%. जब हम बात करते हैं एडवांस इकोनॉमीज की, तो फॉर द G20 एडवांस इकोनॉमीज इट इज गोइंग टू बी 2.7% फॉर द 2024, which is absolutely same as the world economy, and it was 3.1% for the advanced economies for both 2022-2023. Headline inflation, core inflation, you can just go through them on your own, guys. And now I'm moving towards the next question. So next question here is once again on the same report. Here the three statements are being given. You are required to identify the correct statement here. Okay, so my dear friends, please go through the statements and identify the correct statement. Here the first statement is on the projected global GDP growth for 2024. We have already covered, it will slow down to 2.7%. Projected GDP growth for India, India का क्या रहने वाला है 6% as per this particular question. And in the third statement it is saying the theme of the above mentioned report is confronting inflation for higher growth. Can you identify that what exactly, which of the following statements are correct here? So question number 12. So here the right answer is option C. So which statement is incorrect here? The statement number 3 is incorrect. Why so? There is the incorrect part in the theme. It states confronting inflation for higher growth, but the theme was confronting inflation for low growth, and that is why this particular right answer is option C. That is both 1 and 2 are the right answers. ठीक है, तो G20 emerging economies का आप देख सकते हो 2023 के लिए it is 4.5%, 6 for 2024 it is going to be 3.9%. And when I talk about the India specific part, the GDP growth rate will be 7.2% for 2022. It was 6.3% for 2023. It will be 6% for 2024. Headline inflation and the other data, you can go through them on your own, my dear friends. Let's move on to the next question. So next question is basically once again on the same report, and once again, now I think it will be very easy for you to identify the right answers. So here it is being asked projected GDP growth for G20 advanced economies for 24 is 3.9%, and अगर हम बात करते हैं emerging economies के लिए it was 2.7% for 2024, and headline inflation की बात करें इंडिया की it was 4.8%. You have to identify the correct statement. What is the right answer? The right answer to this question is option E. Only third statement is correct. We have already covered these two particular datas in the previous slides. We have covered the projected GDP growth rate for both G20 advanced economies as well as for the G20 emerging economies in the detailed manner. हमने सभी years की discussion की है, and I will not be discussing there once again in this particular part. I can believe that yes, you guys are really smart enough to identify that what exactly is the right answer to this part. ठीक है, so here is the complete explanation here, guys. You can just go through them on your own. Let's move on to the next important report. So अभी हमने बात की थी OECD economic outlook की. So people were saying that it is basically world economic outlook which was being launched by the IMF. So now let's move on to that report as well, which was also released in the month of October. So here the instruction is, the report highlights that global recovery from COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it remains slow and uneven. Despite economic resilience earlier this year with the reopening, rebound, and progress in reducing inflation from the last year peaks, it is too soon to take the comfort, and the other important details are also being mentioned here. So here, my dear friends, to this particular part, here is the very first question. The first question is we have to identify the name of the body which releases this report, and I believe that all of you will really be able to identify the name of that particular organization which has released this report, and the name of that particular organization is International Monetary Fund, that is IMF. Option C is the right answer. Okay, so this report is published twice a year, and the theme was navigating global divergences. That was the theme for World Economic Outlook update for the October 2023. This was released by International Monetary Fund. Let's now quickly move to the next question. The next question is, once again, three statements are being given. You are to identify the incorrect statement. Pehli statement mein we are discussing about the global growth projection for year 23-24, which is 3%. Then growth projections for advanced economies is mentioned, that is 2.6% for 23-24, and growth projection for India is mentioned for 23-24, that is 6.3%. So you have to identify which of the following statements are incorrect. So here I can see some of the students are basically opting for the option number C for the question number 15. So my dear friends, I'm waiting for your responses as well. Please try to identify which of the following statements are incorrect with respect to this World Economic Outlook. As you have mentioned that yes, it was the World Economic Outlook, that means you have already read it. So now I want all of you to answer me correctly in this particular question. So what is the right answer here? The right answer to the question number 15, it is on option B. Ravi Shankar has given me the right answer. That is only statement 2 is the incorrect one, where the advanced economies growth projections have been mentioned incorrectly, which is mentioned 2023-24. It is 2.6% for the advanced economies. Okay, for the period 2023-24. So it is basically 1.5%, only 2.6% is for 2022-2023, and that is why that statement is incorrect. अगर हम बात करते हैं growth projection की global level पे, it is going to be 2.9% for 24-25, 3% for 23-24. ठीक है, 22-23, my dear friends, let me tell you that it is very less probable to be asked in the exam that they will be asking the question on this line. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, जब हम बात करते हैं इमर्जिंग इकोनॉमीज की, तो उसके लिए 4.1% थी 22-23, एंड इट विल बी 4% फॉर 23-24, 24-25 बोथ ईयर्स. ठीक है, व्हेन आई टॉक अबाउट द इंडिया स्पेसिफिक डिटेल्स, देन द ग्रोथ प्रोजेक्शन फॉर इंडिया वाज 7.2% फॉर 22-23, 6.3% फॉर 23-24, एंड 6.3% फॉर 24-25. सो these are the most important things that we are required to cover. इंडिया का ग्रोथ प्रोजेक्शन 24-25 और 23-24 के लिए याद रखिए, because it can be asked in the exam. ठीक है जी, I hope this is clear to all of you. Absolutely right, my dear friend, that is the right part. Let's move on to the next important one. See, अगर इकोनॉमी पे इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है तो किस पे इंपैक्ट पड़ेगा? दैट इज हमारी लेबर फोर्स के इंपैक्ट पड़ेगा. एंड द नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट रिपोर्ट दैट वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस इज द पीरियोडिक लेबर फोर्स सर्वे, अ क्वार्टरली बुलेटिन फॉर अप्रैल टू जून 2023, which was being recently released, and the question is on the same report. Once again, three statements are being given. You have to go through and identify the correct statement with respect to the PLFS, that is पीरियोडिक लेबर फोर्स सर्वे क्वार्टरली बुलेटिन फॉर अप्रैल टू जून 2023. ठीक है जी, तो यहाँ पर तीन स्टेटमेंट्स दी गई हैं आपको. तो पहली स्टेटमेंट बात करती है अबाउट द लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन रेट. Let me tell you, my dear friend, this report is being released by NSSO under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, and it tells us about the very important key indicator, that is labor force participation rate, worker population rate, and the unemployment rate which is there in India. So labor force participation rate was 45.5%, worker population ratio, it states it was 48.8%, and unemployment rate in India was 6.6%. You have to identify the correct statement. So here, my dear friends, when I talk about the labor force participation rate, it was basically 48.8%. When I talk about the worker population rate, it was 45.5%. That is why the statement number 1 and 2 are incorrect. The right answer here is option C. That is only statement 3 is correct with respect to the PLFS survey quarterly bulletin for April June 2023. तो यहाँ पर हम देख सकते हैं कि इसको पहली बार इंट्रोड्यूस किया था 2017 के अंदर. दिस वाज द 19th इन द सीरीज, और ये हमें की एम्प्लॉयमेंट अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट इंडिकेटर्स के बारे में बताता है फॉर द पीरियड ऑफ 3 months for the urban areas in the current weekly status. Apart from that, employment or unemployment indicators in both usual status and the currently weekly status, it provides for the both rural and urban areas. जब हम बात करते हैं हमने सबसे पहले इंडिकेटर की, that is the labor force participation rate. अगर हम बात करते हैं ओवरऑल, इट वाज 48.8%, फॉर द मेल्स इट वाज 73.5%, फीमेल इट वाज 23.2%. वर्कर पॉपुलेशन रेशियो की बात करते हैं, for the persons of age 15 years and above, it was overall 45.5%. When I talk about the unemployment rate, guys, it was overall 6.6%. For the males, it was 5.9%. For the females, it was 9.1%. So I hope that all these kind of details are very much clear to all of you, and a very, very important report, guys, on which a question can be asked in the exam. So you must be very well prepared. As we have already discussed these findings, let me tell you that the major chances from which the question can be asked is the unemployment rate, that to overall unemployment rate. वर्कर पॉपुलेशन रेशियो LFPR को भी आप ओवरऑल ही कवर कीजिए, मेल एंड फीमेल के ऊपर क्वेश्चंस नहीं आते हैं, इतने ज्यादा इन डेप्थ नहीं आते हैं. So make sure that at least you are covering such overview data from this particular report as well. बढ़ते अपने अगले क्वेश्चन की तरफ. The question is basically on the data that we have already covered in the previous slide. ठीक है. The question is basically, as per the report, the labor force participation rate for the persons of age 15 years and above, for the females, what exactly it was? It was 23.2%, 24.2, 25.2, 26.2 and 27.2. So what is the right answer? Can you guys tell me the right answer? We have already covered this data in the previous slide. So here, guys, the right answer is option A, that is 23.2%. 23.2% is the right answer to this question. तो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, जैसे कि यहाँ पर पीरियोडिक लेबर फोर्स सर्वे की बात की गई, इट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट फ्रॉम द एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, एंड सच काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आर रियली रियली वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम द एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. तो पीरियोडिक लेबर फोर्स सर्वे को हमने ऑलरेडी कवर कर दिया है. अगर यहाँ पर वी ऑल नो कि अगर अपनी ही लोकेलिटी के अंदर, अपने ही एरिया के अंदर पीपल आर नॉट एबल टू गेट ऑल द बेसिक फैसिलिटीज और उनको जॉब्स नहीं मिल रही हैं, तो व्हाट एग्जैक्टली विल हैपन? इट विल लीड टू माइग्रेशन. ठीक है. So it will lead to migration, and that too, my dear friends, another important report which has been released by OECD, and the name of the report is International Migration Outlook, which is released by OECD, about which we have already covered in a detailed manner. So question number 18 is on the International Migration Outlook 2023. So 3 statements are being given, guys. You have to identify the correct statement with respect to the OECD International Migration Outlook. पहली स्टेटमेंट है, इंडिया हैज emerged as the top country of origin of the new citizens in OECD countries. Second statement states India has topped new citizens in OECD countries since 2019. Among 407,000 Indian migrants to the OECD nations, 133,000 gained nationalities, the highest global acquisition rate. So please quickly go through the statements and identify which of the following statements are correct with respect to the international migration outlook. So I'm waiting for your responses here. I can see that some of the people are opting the option number C, that is only statement 3 is correct here. But my dear friends, here let me tell you that all the statements are correct with respect to the OECD. India was the country which has emerged as the top country of origin of new citizens in the OECD countries. India has also topped new citizens in OECD countries since 2019. And the third statement is also right with respect to the International Migration Outlook launched by the OECD. This was the 47th edition. अगर हम बात करते हैं India specific details की, so it was a top country of origin for the new migrants in the member countries of OECD. कितने member countries हैं, क्या कोई मुझे बता सकता है? For the OECD, how many member countries are there? Are 38 member countries. Absolutely 38 member countries is the right answer. Apart from that, अगर हम बात करते हैं बाकी countries की, these are China, Romania, Ukraine and Germany. So these are the important details that we have already covered in the question itself. I hope that these details are very much clear to all of you, my dear friends. Let's move on to the next important question from this particular report, and the question is basically that which of the following statements are incorrect regarding this international migration outlook? You have to identify the incorrect statement here. पहली statement कहती है कि OECD has seen 26% surge in permanent migration, hitting 6.1 million in 2022. OECD's asylum applications soared to 2 million in 2022, nearly double in 2021. USA has got the highest new migrants in 2021, followed by Canada. Over 60% of OECD's international students in 2021 originated from Asia only. So you have to identify the incorrect statement here with respect to the international migration outlook. So my dear friends, I've already highlighted the keywords which can be wrong in this particular part. So आप देख सकते हो यहाँ पर in the statement it states that USA has got the highest new immigrants in 2021, followed by Canada. But let me tell you that it was the Canada which has got the highest new immigrants in 2021, and that is why statement C is basically the incorrect one. ठीक है जी. हम यहाँ पर देख सकते हैं OECD में क्या हुआ है, it saw 26% surge in the permanent migration. ठीक है. And when I talk about the very important part which was mentioned incorrectly in the statement, it was Canada which has got the highest new immigrants in 2021. Apart from that, my dear friends, जैसा कि हम बात कर रहे हैं migration की, let me tell you that another very important report was being released recently which is related to the migration. And as we have covered about the international migration outlook, so now let's discuss the migration in India, and the report's name is also the same, that is Migration in India 2020-21. When I talk about the body which has released this report, it is once again NSSO under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And as per the report, when I talk about the migration rate in India, it is 28.9%. When I talk about the rural areas, it is 26.5%. And for the urban areas, it was 34.9%. ठीक है. Rural areas, urban areas, we have covered both of them. When I talk about the males, for males it was 10.7%. For the females, it was 47.9%. So guys, can you tell me that what exactly can be the major reason for the migration of males and females in India? Let me tell you that for the males, the employment is the major reason for the migration. But when I talk about the females, marriages, their marriage is basically the major reason of their migration, and that is what the another important thing that we have to cover from the exam point of view. Apart from that, my dear friends, if I talk about the total migration in India, so 88% of the migrants they move within the state. That means अपने ही state के अंदर वो migrate करते हैं, and that was basically the data of 2020-2021. 88% of the migrants basically migrated within the state only in year 2020-2021. I hope this is clear to all of you. Absolutely right, Ravi Shankar and Nilesh, you have given me absolutely the right information here about this part. So here we have covered another important report, guys. Let's move on to the next important report. तो जैसा कि हमने देखा कि काफी ज्यादा माइग्रेशन होता है, and such kind of situation also happened in the COVID-19 pandemic when our laborers were forced to migrate from one place to another because no jobs were there and they lost their jobs, they lost their livelihoods as well. फूड नहीं था, तो उसके टाइम पे, so in during those particular tough times, government of India has come up with a very important step, guys. The name of that step is PM Swanidhi scheme, that is Pradhan Mantri Street Vendor Atmanirbhar Nidhi scheme. So my dear friends, this particular question, let me tell you that a particular report has been released about the PM Swanidhi, which is strengthening country's social fabric through empowering grassroots market mavericks report. This report has been released, which is totally based on the PM Swanidhi. 5 options are being given. It was released by the State Bank of India. 75% to loan beneficiaries and under the PM Swanidhi, they are from the non-general category. OBCs accounts for 44% of the total disbursements. SCs, STs account for 22% and 23% of the total beneficiaries are women. So these 5 statements are given. You are required to identify the incorrect statement with respect to this particular report. So my dear friends, I'm waiting for your responses here. So here people are opting the option E as the right answer. Absolutely, option E is the right answer. That is 23% of the total beneficiaries are women. Can you make it correct? The people who have chosen the option E, guys, can you make it correct? Can you make this statement correct? That what exactly should be the right value instead of 23% of the total beneficiaries are women? So how many beneficiaries are women? What exactly is the percentage is? It is basically 43%. Okay, so State Bank of India has come up with a report which analyzed the impact of PM Swanidhi. PM Swanidhi was a very ambitious project which has been launched by the government of India, and as a part of it, guys, 75% of them are loan beneficiaries which are from non-general category. OBCs accounted for 44% of the total disbursement. SCs and STs accounted for 22% and 43% of the total beneficiaries are women. Now let me ask you some very common and important details about the PM Swanidhi as well. So my dear friend, the first question that I am having in my mind is, can you guys tell me the name of the nodal ministry for the PM Swanidhi scheme? Let me tell you that this is a scheme which was launched in year 2020. Okay? And this scheme is implemented by the SIDBI. When I talk about the nodal ministry for this particular scheme, it is Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Absolutely right. When I talk about this particular scheme, it facilitates the collateral free working capital loan to the street vendors. so that वो अपना business restart कर सके which was impacted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. जब हम बात करते हैं collateral free loan की, जो first loan उनको मिलता है that is up to rupees 10,000. In the second tranche they can get the loan of up to rupees 20k, and in the third tranche they can get the loan of up to 50k. Okay, that is the most important part. When I talk about this scheme, that is the PM Swanidhi, it is a central sector scheme. Okay, it is a central sector scheme. Absolutely right, Nilesh and Ravi, you have given me the right answer, Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs. Now my dear friends, when I talk about the tenure of this particular scheme, the tenure of the scheme is till December 2024. ठीक है, अगर हम बात करते हैं टारगेट बेनिफिशियरीज कौन से हैं, लेट मी टेल यू दैट all street vendors are the target beneficiaries. These vendors must be from the urban areas and the surrounding semi-urban areas and the rural areas. But a date is very, very important, and they should be the street vendor as or before March 24, 2020. Guys, let me tell you that this date is very, very important from the exam point of view. The question can come up from this particular date as well. Okay, so we have covered another important scheme as well in this report session, that is the PM Swanidhi scheme, which was being launched by the government of India in 2020. The nodal ministry is Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs. The implementing agency should be, I believe that guys you have basically got all the important points about this particular part. So now let's move on to the next question. Next question is on the same report. You are required to identify the correct statement with respect to this particular report. The very first statement is 2/3 of the borrowers are in the range of 26 to 45 years. Second statement states on average 63% of the individuals are in the age group below 25 and above 60. They increases their spending after receiving the loan. Third statement states that Bengaluru is the top performer where 45% of the total spenders are active spenders. Absolutely right. So my dear friends, please identify the incorrect statement here, and if you will be able to identify the incorrect statement, then you will can also identify the correct statements here. So अगर correct statement यहाँ पर कौन सी है? Absolutely right statement option C, that is both statement 1 and 2 are correct. If I talk about the incorrect part, it is the Bengaluru, the name of this particular city which was a top performer where 45% of the total spenders are active spenders. Absolutely right. Yes, definitely Ravi Shankar, but yes, still this is a kind of facility which has been provided by the government of India, and it is a kind of step which has basically given to boost the economy at that point of time. So now let's not discuss that in a detailed manner. I think let's stick to the limits of the session only. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पर अगर हम बात करते हैं बेंगलुरु की, so how we can make this particular part correct? How can we make Bengaluru, which has been mentioned incorrectly here? What will be the right part here? So please quickly tell me the right part. So here Nilesh is saying that it is Varanasi. Absolutely right. Varanasi is the right answer. Varanasi is the top performer where 44% of the total spenders are active spenders. Okay. So we have already covered important part. The 2/3 of the borrowers are in the range of 26 to 45 years. So 63% individuals on average, they are in the age group of 25, below 25 and above 60. Okay. So my dear friend, these are the most important part. Apart from that, PM Swanidhi loans for the Jan Dhan beneficiaries lead to a minimum 9.5% migration of individuals. So these are the important details that we have to cover from the exam point of view. Let's move on to the another important report, and that report is basically related to your topic of the health. And my dear friend, the report here is the national, regional and global estimates of preterm birth in 2020. Let me tell you that in the phase 1 as well, we have covered a report which was related to the preterm births. So the very first statement is basically on the releasing body of the report, that is being given as WHO. Second statement is globally, India has the highest number of preterm births. Third statement is basically regarding the conceptual understanding of yours, that what exactly the preterm birth signifies. It is said when a baby is born before 27 weeks of gestation. So my dear friends, can you please identify which of the following statements are correct with respect to this particular report? So first of all, it has been mentioned it was published by WHO. That is not at all correct. So here guys, the right answer is option 2, that is globally, India has the highest number of preterm births, one of the very, very important finding of this report. Let me tell you the statement 3. It states preterm birth is said when a baby is born before 27 weeks of gestation. But no, it is basically before 37 weeks of gestation, and that is why it is also incorrect part. So let me tell you that the report was published by the Lancet journal. Although it is a private organization, guys, but still we can see the topic that it is touching. It is really very important from the NABARD grade exam point of view. So when I talk about the global findings, so babies were born early in 2020 were 13.4 million. That is around 1 in 10 babies. When we talk about the India specific details, so preterm birth in 2020, India was having the highest number in the worldwide, that is 3.02 million. That is 20% of all the preterm births globally. ठीक है, इंडिया के बाद अदर कंट्रीज वर पाकिस्तान, नाइजीरिया, चाइना, इथियोपिया एंड अदर वन. सो दीज आर द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट. प्रीटर्म बर्थ की बात करी जाए, इट इज द बेबी बॉर्न बिफोर 37 वीक्स ऑफ gestation, and that is the right part. Absolutely right. All the people have given me the right answer. Now guys, let's move on to the next important one. The next important report is the India AI report. Let me tell you, my dear friend, that we are into the timeline where we are transitioning towards these emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning. People are using the chat GPT. So that is why how we can use the AI in the agriculture part. In that particular such kind of question, you can also employ such kind of data which are being mentioned in such kind of reports as well. That is India AI report. So once again, 3 statements are given. You have to identify the incorrect statement. First statement is regarding the releasing body, the ministry which has released this report, that is Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Second statement is that artificial intelligence is anticipated to contribute $1 trillion to the Indian economy by 2035. This is the first edition of the report. So 3 statements before all of you. Please tell me which of the following statements are incorrect with regarding the India AI report. And my dear friends, here the statement which are incorrect are just statement 1, because the releasing ministry is being mentioned incorrectly. The report was released by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. This was the very first edition of the report, and it is going anticipated that artificial intelligence will be contributing $1 trillion to the Indian economy by year 2035. The most important finding from this particular report that we are required to cover from the exam point of view. Absolutely right, Ravi and Nilesh. It is MITI which is the right answer, which has released this report. Moving on to the next question, guys. The question is on the World Energy Outlook. So World Energy Outlook, question number 24. Once again, 3 statements are given. You are required to identify the correct statement with respect to this part. So first statement is it is released by the World Bank. Second statement, the emissions are expected to increase temperature by approximately 2.4 degrees Celsius. Fossil fuels account for close to 80% of the total energy supply in 2023. Use of fossil fuels is expected to peak by 2045. So these are the 4 statements that we are required to cover, and you have to identify which of the following statements are correct. So please focus on the keywords which are being mentioned here, which has been highlighted, and please try to identify which of the following statements are correct with respect to this report. So here, what is the right answer, guys, to question number 24? The right answer is option D, that is statement number 2 and 3 are absolutely correct. So here, basically the incorrect one are the releasing body and the use of fossil fuels is expected to peak by 2045. Let's identify which are the right part. So my dear friend, this is the World Energy Outlook, which is being released by the International Energy Agency, and it provides us 3 scenarios for the future of global energy. That is stated policy scenario, accelerated policy scenario and net zero emission by 2050. ठीक है, तो 3 सिनेरियोस की बात करता है. एक में जो स्टेटेड पॉलिसी सिनेरियो, एक में जब हम अपने पॉलिसीज को एक्सेलरेट कर लेंगे, एंड द थर्ड वन इज द नेट जीरो एमिशन बाय 2050. ठीक है, तो अगर हम बात करते हैं फॉसिल फ्यूल्स का जो यूजेज है वो पीक करेगा बाय 2025 एंड नॉट बाय 2045. दैट इज व्हाई इट इज इनकरेक्ट पार्ट, एंड द रिलीजिंग बॉडी वाज मेंशन्ड वर्ल्ड बैंक, बट इट इज द इंटरनेशनल एनर्जी एजेंसी, एंड दैट इज व्हाई माय डियर फ्रेंड दिस पर्टिकुलर स्टेटमेंट वाज इनकरेक्ट, एंड द राइट आंसर इज statement 2 and 3 are absolutely right. Absolutely right, Nilesh, you have given me the right answer. Now, my dear friends, we are moving towards the last question of our today's session, and I want all of you to tell me the right answer to this question. The question, once again, you are required to identify incorrect statement regarding the World Energy Outlook 2023. Statement A states, in India, investment in clean energy is projected to more than double by 2030 as compared to 22 levels, reaching around $60 billion. 18% जो है इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जो जनरेट होती है इंडिया के अंदर, they will be from the solar sources by 2030. India is set to become the world's largest solar power generator by 2030. India has set a target of achieving 500 gigawatt of installed capacity from non-fossil fuels, including around 270 gigawatt of solar capacity by 2030. So you can see here, guys, that so much of data is being asked here, and let me tell you, that is the harsh reality of the exam as well, because in the exams you will be facing such kind of questions which are basically based on such kind of data heavy questions are there. So please quickly tell me, guys, what is the right answer to this question? Which of the following statements are incorrect here? So here the right answer is option C, that India is set to become the world's largest solar power generator by 2030. Let me tell you that why exactly it is incorrect, because India will become the world third largest solar power generator by 2030 and not the world's largest solar power generator. And my dear friend, that is the reason that this particular statement is incorrect, and the right answer is option C. So you can see here that we have already covered such kind of details in the part. The incorrect one was that India will become the world's third largest solar power generator by year 2030, that too behind China and the US. That is why it is being mentioned incorrectly here. ठीक है. Apart from that, अगर हम बात करते हैं इस रिपोर्ट की, it also forecasts a 30% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions from India's industry and 25% reduction in the carbon dioxide emissions. Electricity consumption की बात करते हैं, for the cooling it increased by 21% from 2019 to 2022. That means in the last 3 years, and it is nearly 10% of India's electricity demand. That also shows ये जो हमारी हीट वेव चल रही हैं उसके रिगार्डिंग जो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कंजम्पशन है वो और ज्यादा लग रही है फॉर द कूलिंग पर्पसेस. एंड माय डियर फ्रेंड, दैट वाज ऑल फ्रॉम दिस पर्टिकुलर पार्ट, एंड दैट वाज द लास्ट क्वेश्चन ऑफ आवर टुडेज सेशन. एंड नाउ इट इज योर टाइम टू टेल मी योर स्कोर्स आउट ऑफ 25. व्हाट एग्जैक्टली योर स्कोर वाज देयर? What exactly your score was there out of 25? And my dear friends, if you are still new to our YouTube channel, kindly subscribe it and press the bell icon to receive all the latest updates of the courses and videos offered by us. And you can also join our Telegram channel, where you will be getting the PDF of these particular sessions. The link to the Telegram channel will be provided to you in the description of this particular session. Okay? So now it's your time to tell me your scores out of 25. Let me tell you that identifying and analyzing your score is very important. That's how you can just see that what is the pattern which is being followed, that what are the different kind of questions where you have spent more amount of time, what are the kind of questions that you have marked incorrectly here. Kindly identify the pattern. If there is a pattern which is there, try to identify the loophole and try to rectify it, and that's how you will be able to convert your weaknesses into your strength. And that's why this analysis is very very important, my dear friends. And I believe that आज का जो सेशन है आपको काफ़ी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव लगा होगा, and you must have enjoyed the session. It must have been a useful and fruitful session to all of you. कैसा लगा आपको सेशन, प्लीज़ मुझे बताइएगा चैट बॉक्स के अंदर, कमेंट सेक्शन के अंदर. प्लीज़ टेल मी दैट how exactly you have liked this particular session. So we have tried our best to cover all the important reports of the October 2023 which are relevant to your exam point of view. If still, guys, if you are having any kind of queries regarding this session, please feel free to ask your queries in the chat box. And if you are watching the session after, like if you are watching the recording of the session, then you can just share your queries in the comment section as well as on our email ID, that is hello@edutap.co.in, and you can also call us at 8146207241. So my dear friends, I am waiting for your responses in the chat box. If there are queries in your mind, please feel free to ask your queries in the chat box, and otherwise we will be concluding this particular session. Let me tell you, my dear friends, that it was really great to have all of you in this particular session, and you guys have really marked your presence in this particular session. That was really great. And now it's the time that you should also ask your queries as well, because queries जब आप पूछेंगे तभी उनका resolution हम निकाल पाएंगे, उनका solution हम निकाल पाएंगे. And I'm waiting for the responses. Just for one more minute I will be waiting, and then we will be concluding this particular session. ठीक है जी? So my dear friends, please let me know if you are having any kind of queries regarding this particular part. What is your query regarding this session or any other thing regarding the NABARD Grade A Phase 2 exam? So I can see here that there are no more queries. So my dear friends, I think it's a good time that we can conclude the session. Students are saying that no queries. Okay, that's really great that there are no more queries. So my dear friends, thank you for joining us. We will be coming up with such kind of more marathon sessions for all of you, so that we can make sure that yes, you have done the most useful revision for your NABARD Grade A Phase 2 exam. And we will be meeting in the next session. Till then, stay happy, stay healthy. Wish you all happy learning.